Perspective. Today I am with my usual friends, Musanjivu Kuvubu Benjamin. How are you doing today, Benjamin?
I'm good, Thomas.
You're very good. Today
Yes.
we are welcoming Derrick Wandera. Derrick, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
For those that, very good, thanks. For those that don't know Derrick, he is busy covering like the elections in Uganda right now. It's already his third election. He works for a Nation Media Group, so he has worked in many publications in East Africa, not only in Uganda. And we are going to try to understand with him what's the political economy of election right now, and what does it tell us about the larger state of the region politically and maybe even in other sphere. It is your third election already. How is that one going for now? Quickly.
Yeah, the one election that sits in the middle of the three.
Yeah.
The one that's in the middle was more chaotic.
Yeah.
I also got arrested in that one.
Last time you got arrested, but so far you haven't been arrested.
I haven't been
2025.
I haven't been arrested, at least as of now. I've witnessed so many arrests, though.
Yes.
I think last week on Friday, I documented
Of journalists also?
Yeah, no, I think it was mainly supporters.
Okay.
Yes.
I documented and did a story on Sunday in Sunday Monitor.
Okay.
It was so chaotic down in Mbarara. I was on ground and I saw what happened and took place there.
Okay, so you've noticed a lot of things that you will explain to us, and you will tell us how it has evolved. But before that, we have used our audience to tell them like what have we seen this week in East Africa. What is it that we have pinpointed our attention? And we start with Benjamin. Benjamin, tell us, what have you looked at this week in East Africa, and what do you think is particularly interesting?
A lot has happened since we were here. Since the last time a Ugandan became a mayor in New York.
Yes, Uganda is in governance of New York.
But anyway, here in the region, I was watching the developments in Port Basaso in Somalia, Puntland specifically, self-autonomous region of Somalia, where they have had a transit of about 500 containers. They come into Basaso and then they fly to Sudan, RSF.
Okay.
And they are coming from United Arab Emirates. And it suspects their weapons, and we know what is happening in Sudan.
So EAU is dividing Somalia as is busy dividing Sudan.
It is dividing the region, basically.
Okay.
And we know what is happening in Sudan. You can't see blood from space.
Wow.
Satellite photos can trace
satellite
blood,
photos have been terrible.
and that is how bad things are happening. Of course, that is all in the region, and Uganda is very much tied into that because we are into Somalia. But also I've been following Museveni's latest remarks about the Red Sea and Uganda's right to access the sea. It is the same thing that is happening in Ethiopia. Abiy Ahmed is also again and again saying that they have a right to the Red Sea, and they nearly went to war with Eritrea. It is a frozen sort of situation. And Museveni was saying, we may go to war with Kenya one time. If talks don't work, I don't know how that will work out. So that is basically what I've been following. That is what I've watched in the region.
Okay. I mean, Somalia is definitely a very interesting failed state because it's the state that is failing, but that everyone needs. Every superpower is looking at it. And if they're not looking at it, it's because they're busy in Djibouti, basically. But the Turkish are there, United Arab Emirates are there. Ethiopia is interested, obviously, in the regions. So we're going to follow that like quite closely. But maybe before we start and we got back more thoughts, what happened to El Fasher? We have seen it, so we're not supposed to tell you what happened. I think most of our audience would know already what happened in El Fasher. But question is it a genocide or not? And I want to hear both of you about that topic. Is it a genocide for you, or is it an act of war? Terrible act of war, but still an act of war.
Maybe Derrick will go first. Derrick will go first on that.
Derrick will go first on this one. And prepare question for viewers.
Yeah.
It's a very delicate situation. And again, in any kind of war situation, normally different people view such wars in different angles, depending on where you sit from or depending on which kind of lenses you use. say, for instance, you just talked about the war in Somalia, for instance, and you're saying UAE. I mean, like everyone's looking at Somalia as the best. I mean, as the best place to be, and yet it's breaking every other day. So one would actually say and argue that probably this war is instigated by certain elements, certain people who have interests there, depending on what they're getting there. So for me, again, I feel I wouldn't generalize it to be a genocide per se, but there are certainly, in every war, there are people who are having interests in it, and there are people who are winning out of it, there are people who are losing out of it. On the general, I think instigation, people's interests are be protected, and that's what we are seeing at the moment. Yeah.
What we can be 100% sure is that this is war crime.
Yeah.
This is war crime
Yes.
on a large scale. Absolutely. And I've been arguing in another platform that the main issue comes from the lack of justice. Because the people that are killing in El Fasher, or that killed in El Fasher 2 weeks ago, are the very same people that were involved in the massacres that happened in Darfur in the beginning of the 2000s, the Janjaweed. And so those Janjaweed are still free to do their move, even though we know they were a genocide in Darfur in the beginning of the century. So the very same actors being still free and also free to restart and redo the same thing, right? Obviously, the Sudan crisis is very complex. We have spoke about it in previous episodes, so we're not getting back into it, but I wanted to have opinions before we start.
Yeah, so I when I talk about El Fasher specifically, I normally refer to what happened in Goma. M23 took over Goma, and we know what happened. And we are hearing the reports.
Yes.
When RSF took El Fasher, they are completely different tales.
Yeah.
Why these are both rebel outfits, non-state actors that are rich. They have modern weapons, but one takes over and then sort of governs, then the other just goes on a killing spree.
Yeah.
We could ask ourselves such questions.
But also we could ask ourselves, why was it that Tanzanian army was here to protect Goma, mercenaries were there to protect Goma, South Africa was there to protect Goma, Malawi was there to protect Goma. There were a lot of army involved into the protection of Goma.
At some point, there were actually 48 countries interested.
Yes.
In the recent one, at least, if we had the list of people interested in Congo, it was wow, for this show. But recently, at least there were a lot of even East African army that were involved, right? Where were they to protect El Fasher? Why is it that the government of Sudan has not managed to secure such an international?
So through IGAD, IGAD and the African Union have worked out something, and they think it is not yet time for military intervention. And they have,
I don't know
they have picked President Museveni to head sort of peace talks. I don't know how far he has gone.
For me, my problem is I don't know who sits and judges and makes the decision that this is the time when we're supposed to intervene, or this is the time when we're not supposed to intervene, because this war has, in my view, had so many people die
much more than Gaza, for instance.
Much more than Gaza. The Goma that everyone rushed to, international. I don't know when someone sits to say that this is when we should. I was in Gambia last month at the 85th ordinary session for the African Commission for People and Rights and Human Rights Defenders, and the talk was about Sudan and how it's suddenly a forgotten war.
Yeah,
you can't imagine that all the massacres that have happened, that the kind of gravity of the war that's happening in Sudan, that everyone has almost shut up on it, and so many eyes are given to say. Goma in DRC, even when there's just M27. Yes, there is M27.
23.
I mean, M23. How am I having 7?
There's so many groups of rebels in Congo that we had.
But you know,
I don't remember which show it was.
You know, there are very many M20 something.
Something. Yeah. So M23 is causing a lot of mayhem in Goma,
In
for
Goma.
instance, in Eastern DRC, but not to the level, to the extent of what's happening in Sudan. What has happened there for I think now 3 years, 4 years, and you're going to see that there's so many people who are going to run to help DRC than they are going to think about Sudan. That just tells you about what I started with, that so much interest come into play in terms of
Sudan is selling a lot of gold right now, and the interest
No, not
Sudan has more.
Not
Sudan.
Sudan
Has gold.
Not as a country.
RSF.
RSF.
Gold, yeah, right.
That is the problem now.
I think there's more gold in the RSF ends than there is in Goma right now.
I personally think that Ukraine and Gaza have exhausted our empathy. And then Western media, they cover what they want and their interests. Actually, Gaza was covered by Al Jazeera. If Al Jazeera wasn't there, people would never have noticed. So Sudan has come at a point when Europe is fed up with Ukraine and the rest of the world has seen enough in Gaza. And then here, Thomas may not agree with me. For a military intervention to happen in Sudan, we have to go to the United Nations Security Council. But
I think the Sudan war actually started way earlier.
But at first it looked like a civil war, and then it looked like just a simple, because it really started like a coup.
Yeah,
there was a coup after a coup. There was already a coup of the civilian government.
Yes.
They both sit together and said, no, we are going to tackle the civilian government. And as soon as the civilian government was tackled, they start to divide themselves. But can we use this also to speak of another topic that is important in the region, in the sense that RSF was a militia, right? RSF was set from Janjaweed fighters back in the day by Omar al-Bashir in order to fight outside of Sudan, and so to keep like some sort of balance of power, right? So they fought in Yemen, and Bashar al-Assad got a lot of cash. Bashir, sorry. He got a lot of cash from it. Then they start to fight for Saudis, and they got cash. And then they start to fight. They went in a lot of battlegrounds, right? And they gain a lot of like technology. They become better and stronger than their own army. And then they got greedy, and they thought, hey, if we can control the borders, if we can do all of this all around the world, why can't we do it here, right? There has been accusation on social media that the violence that we have observed in Tanzanian elections were not made by the Tanzanian army, but by another force of some sort of mercenary soldiers, or at least foreign mercenary soldiers. I don't know if you guys have heard about those claims, but is it the same situation happening? Do we have those militia groups that can become so powerful that at some point they end up tackling government?
When Ruto had just taken over, he was very close to Hemeti.
Yes.
And there were reports here and there that Hemeti had his men train the Kenyan security apparatus on how to abduct and what. So we can't rule out in this region.
Like
in this region, you can't rule out.
I think at one point, then you begin to ask yourself, when do the East African nations come together to support each other when they have unrests, civil unrests and stuff? When is it done? Is it even done in a formal way or an informal way? When the Mandamano was happening in Kenya, there were pictures that flew across social media of Ugandan flags.
Uniforms, number plates
of cars in Tanzania. I mean, in Nairobi.
In Nairobi.
It was very hard to rule out the fact that probably there was an intervention. The same we've seen in Tanzania. The army in Tanzania normally is always very typically it's Kiswahili spoken. We've seen videos of army personnel speaking English fluently, and probably being traced from some of the East African nations. And you would then wonder when these three countries come to sort out their issues, if they have a mess
we also have a record of private military organizations.
Yeah, but one of the things that I saw that Samia Suluhu came out to call out Ruto and Museveni for help. Of course, we don't know at what level that kind of talk is supposed to be. Do you come in as a president of the nation, or do you come in as East African community to say we have, like we saw in the interventions that happened in DRC.
In DRC.
DRC. Very well choreographed. We know that these are the East African army is coming together to go and support now. When it's civil unrest, a political unrest like it is it has been in Tanzania, then you don't know when probably President Museveni will say, I want to go and support my fellow statesman or Pan-African in Kenya, in Nairobi, or in South Sudan. We've seen President Museveni has deployed to South Sudan, for instance. It was a public knowledge. But there is a war, a civil war, involving military rebels from the other side, from different side against the. It's not the same with Kenya. For instance, Maandamano in Nairobi, or the political unrest in Dar es Salaam. You want to think then. What criteria do you use to come in? Do you go to fight using ammunitions against unarmed civilians in Tanzania or in Kenya?
Do they do it to strengthen their own power? Do they do it for impose a global order, like a political order in the region? Or could we also think that they are doing it for money or for finance? Like when you send those men in Tanzania or in Kenya, does it bring back money in Kampala? Like is there also some financial element, you think, in this question?
I think I can borrow a leaf from the AMISOM in Somalia. We know for sure that there is a lot of money that comes in Uganda in terms of supporting the AMISOM in Somalia. At some point, I did stories for the Daily Monitor and other regional media houses of soldiers who came back from Somalia and had never been paid, and yet the protocols that govern that say by the time the chopper or say plane leaves Entebbe for Somalia, the accounts must have been settled at the Central Bank of Uganda. But then a soldier goes and spends maybe 14 months or 16 months in Somalia, comes back and says, I'm supposed to get $450 per month, but I was only given, for the 15 months per month, $450. But then they tell you I only got $150 for 3 months, and I'm back, and I don't have any money to use. And I've written such stories, and so you know that who is gaining from this? There's certainly monetary aspect attached to this. Whether Uganda, whether Kampala as a city is a full beneficiary. Of this, or individuals within the army are beneficiaries, is one debate that we can hold for another day. But for sure, we know that if Uganda, for instance, goes to South Sudan, there have to be monetary attaches coming to you. You probably are going to AU to ask for funding for the soldiers. You are going to these different regional bodies, SADC and whatever. But whether that money goes and it's used in the way it's supposed to be used is another discussion.
It's another debate. So you think it is? So you have observed what happened in Tanzania, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What's your take about that? A lot of us were surprised. I think in this podcast, when we spoke about the Tanzanian election, we thought, let's look at Cameroon and Ivory Coast. It would be much more interesting. There would be more challenging in Cameroon than there would be in Tanzania. And it turned out like it was quite similar. How do you explain that? Did it surprise you?
Last week I was on a TV station and I was with a government officer, actually, the government spokesperson, and was asked on whether Uganda is concerned about what was happening in Tanzania. And they are very happy to say that Tanzanian people are so ungrateful. Look at the road network system that has grown over the last 5 years or 10 years. Look at the transport sector infrastructure, the growth in terms of the economy. It has been, I think it was declared middle income status anywhere around 2023 earlier than Uganda was ever done. You look at the everything that's in Tanzania could not warrant such kind of an unrest. But hey, so he asks, what do the young people want? And my view is that there are countries that certainly have potent of asking for issues, for instance, the road, the economy, the education, the health, and stuff like that, because they are not there. And those will demand that if you are the leaders who are in office do not put those into play, then they are going to ask them to step away. But there is the other angle whereby the country has all these things, but they are just practicing their democratization, that you are maybe not following the democracy of maybe we have 2 terms or 3 terms and you're supposed to step away. There are countries where we have all these. And in fact, the leaders have not stayed long.
Very
but
many.
The youth are asking different serious questions of, do we have a voice in this country? Do we have a place in this country? Do we have where do we trace our position in this country? Do we speak, and those that are in power listen to us, or they are going to come and make roads and say, we have created for you roads, so you don't say anything about the governance issues that are happening in the country.
They don't have cars. Like, you create roads for people that don't have cars. Like, how is it that I'm the only one like to see it as a problem?
For me,
it's an economic question.
And for me, I feel it's not even an economic question. For me, I feel we have reached an area or an era where the youth are going to ask the pertinent questions of, what is our place in the governance of the country? Regardless of what you've provided for us, do we have a voice? What is our representation in parliament, for instance? When we come and ask for our voice to be heard, how much are we heard? Do we go to the polling stations and our votes really mirror our voice in there? And in as much as some leaders might provide for these, for as long as the youth is still asking the question of governance and whether their voice has a place in the country, it's going to be a problem, and you're going to see many of these youths go to the streets. Of course, Tanzania was the least we have ever expected. You know?
Do you think they learn from Kenya, those young people? Do you think part of it is they watch what happened in Kenya with police brutality,
Madagascar,
and young people in the street? The Gen Z has been on the news for a long time.
Nepal.
But I believe that Kenya has had a particular soft spot for Tanzanian youth, right? Even for us in Uganda, when we saw Kenyans being in the streets, we start to think, okay, something might happen here too, right? So do you think like they got some sort of influenced by the Kenyan situation?
Let's look at the issues, for instance, the issues that I've been talking about. Let's go to Nairobi. Nairobi is asking for the removal of the finance policy, for instance, which engineered the
finance bill,
the financial bill. There is a lot of high standard of living in Nairobi. The fuel prices in Nairobi are too high out there. In Nairobi, if you just eclipse the price of ugali, you're causing mayhem. And the price of ugali has leapfrogged from the 120 shillings that's supposed to be sold to anywhere about 300 something, and that's certainly going to cause a problem. The farmers who are depending on agribusiness are telling you fertilizers are not anywhere, and irrigation system is very broken in the country. And you look at all these issues that they are in the eyes of the people, and the people are demanding for them. And if they went on the streets, you certainly say, you're right to go to the streets. And that's why some of these concessions came to Ruto, and Ruto had to sit down and said, okay, I have withdrawn the finance bill. I have cut the price of ugali to anywhere about 70 shillings. I have deployed experts to look at the irrigation system of the country. We know how the road network in Kenya eclipsed in just 5 years.
5 years.
And it was all over the place. Of course, part of which brought them problems.
The loans
loans and stuff like that. But you see that there is an element of their issues that need to be addressed.
Okay.
Now let's go to Tanzania.
Yes. Are those elements there?
Those elements are not in Tanzania.
Yes, they are
Those
not.
elements are not in Tanzania.
If anyone is to complain in this region, it shouldn't be the people of
Tanzania. So what happened?
Okay.
That is a question.
They shouldn't be the ones coming to ask for the road network, because the road network
It's
has
quite good.
more
I have
than
to say.
doubled.
I have
Yes.
to say, yeah,
get-
and it's quite
Yeah.
good quality.
They
yeah.
have more than doubled.
They have the
Yeah.
roads,
When
they have
you
the
look at- when you
rail
look at
lines,
railway lines, when you look at the standard of living in Kenya,
they use the lake.
in Tanzania, you get. But like I said, does the voice of the young people reflect in the governance of the country? We have seen the biggest expression of I mean, freedom of expression in Tanzania very much curtailed.
Yeah.
The people of Tanzania do not have a say in their own country.
That's true.
And you find that the most opposition people have been incarcerated because they are being Tindlusu has been incarcerated. We are going to the polls and the main opposition leader is incarcerated.
He's incarcerated.
You get?
Basically, there's no opposition
There is no opposition.
at the moment.
Those are the questions that the young people are asking in Tanzania.
So is that new in Tanzanian politics, according to you, like this fight against opposition? Because definitely we have seen it. And I think, like my next question will be about, is it an East African poison?
Yeah.
It's the East African thing, because Kizza Besigye got arrested in Kenya. Martha Karua got kicked out of Tanzania. We have also, there's a, Kabila is in death sentence, he was in Nairobi. Like, is it a thing now to kind of cooperate between governments, especially Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, to fight each other opposition and to manage like to calm down each other opposition?
And that comes at the back of Kizza Besigye being arrested in Nairobi.
Kizza Besigye in Nairobi.
Abducted or something like that.
Martha Karua got kicked out of Tanzania. Recently, Kenyan activists have got kicked out also of the country. They got detained for 10 days, I think, before they get kicked out because they were following NUP rallies. Like, is it a trend now that governments help each other? Like, did Tanzania learn from Uganda? Maybe they didn't learn from Kenya. Maybe they learned from Uganda. It would be a great leadership here.
In 2019,
Yes.
I interviewed one of the top politicians from Kenya. He's actually part of the government right now, Kalonzo Musyoka.
Okay.
Kalonzo Musyoka was coming for some stuff, and I interviewed him about what he sees in Uganda.
Here in Kampala,
Here in Kampala, yes. And I asked him, that's to the run-up of the 2021 elections, and I asked him about his honest view about President Museveni's presidency in the country. And Kalonzo tells me that, in fact, President Museveni should become the president of East Africa. Rather than the president
Of Uganda.
of Uganda. Let me tell you, Thomas, these events are not just dropping from heaven.
Yes.
They are not just coming from nowhere. There is a political kingpin in this region. And the political kingpin has a say in almost
Everything that happens in the
these
region
countries,
and
in the region and in the state. When you see the kind of high-handedness that is in Kenya, for instance, in Nairobi, that is in Dar es Salaam, that is, with the exception of Kigali, that is in Uganda, you will certainly see some kind of a line dotted like to connect that, dotted lines connecting the three countries, and you don't want to take that for granted, for sure.
Where is the line? Is it a kind of a class? Like they know each other, they went to the same school type of vibe?
No,
like,
I think they are reading from the same script, and
Same
they're reading
script.
from one script. Which script they are reading from, it is for you to determine. But these people are Kalonzo's suggestion did not fall from heaven.
yeah, it didn't.
Kalonzo has
It's
seen
very
been
heavy.
in the-
So
in
it's
this-
funny, like, I heard that argument before in at NBS, one of the co-hosts, Professor he said, no, Museveni missed. I am mad at Museveni. And I said, why do you say that? Like, he says, no, Museveni was supposed to lead East Africa.
Africa.
He stopped in Uganda. His mission, his historical mission was to lead East Africa, so to organize Pan-Africanism and to take over the rest of the continent. He had the Pan-African missions that he failed.
He's playing the long game.
And I said, but he did his job in Uganda. Can't you see it? I said, no, he failed his missions. And just to add to that, because you know what then this professor had off of the camera. He said, you know what, it's okay, we don't have Museveni. Because as soon as he died, Kagame will take over. I was like, wait, what? Like, Kagame take over what? East Africa or Uganda? I said, no, he will start with Uganda because his man is in the place, CDF, and then after that, it will be East Africa, and we will be ruled much better. I don't know. I mean,
it's where the region wants to go. If you look at the East African community, however much their walls,
that's not what Tanzania told us last week. Not what they seem to want.
So for me, I feel that these suggestions are not coming from heaven.
From heaven.
We know that these things are actually happening. That the first person for Suluhu, the first President Suluhu visited after her election in Tanzania was President Museveni.
Yes.
She came here?
Yes.
I didn't know
This
that.
was her first destination ever.
And she didn't come to speak to the East African perspective.
the first country
Yes.
that William Ruto, after being elected, went to was in Uganda.
So the script you're talking about is us.
Little wonder that during the inauguration of William Ruto, President Museveni was in attendance.
Yes.
And some of these, you might say, these comings were paying homage to where political power in this region lies.
There is a rumor from South Sudan that no decision is made in cabinet before consulting Entebbe.
And you know that Entebbe has a very big inroad within in South Sudan.
Yeah.
So for me, I am telling you that it's not by mistake that things are happening the way they are
in the region.
In the region, there is certainly a godfather in this region that is moving pawns around and making sure.
I think we remember Abiy Ahmed.
Yeah, Abiy Ahmed.
When he was fighting with Tigray, he did come to Uganda.
Oh, yeah?
And after that trip,
So okay, so then let's go further and said, are we building and spilling over a political model, and maybe we could call it political model or political economy model? Is it some sort of militarization of politics? And is it to say that the era of democracy or weak democracy or fake democracy, call it the way you want, but that started in the 90s, right? That saw like many more elections coming in the region and different leaders being elected. Is it the end of that chapters? Are we entering like a militarization of politics that actually suit all the states in the region? Have they found the recipe, and is that recipe a form of...
And also with what Derrick has just said, is it a process to something, a wider something?
Yeah, is it a model? Can we call it a governance model?
I actually think that this is an era ending.
Okay.
Chapter finishing.
The era of militarization that every president that comes through has to have a military background, especially in Uganda. Of course, Kenya has since moved away from that, but depending on which kind of alienations and allies you create around yourself, then you become either militaristic or not.
Yeah.
So we are seeing also Samia Suluhu. Of course, it has changed from President Mkapa. Now, it is something that's spreading like a scourge, but in a so fast way that someone should be advising the leaders that if you do not do this now, it's never. That you either have to protect your power by the use of the military, or the youth and the Gen Zs are going to box you out, and before you know, it's going to be a civilian kind of rule in the country. For me, that's where I'm seeing things going. Because let me ask, if President Museveni right now left the power, of course we've seen like people who have been posing themselves, including his son, to come and take over his father. But how many Ugandans are going to tolerate, for instance, his son? Even when you look at the Bush war generals who went with him, with President Museveni to war, are speaking with both sides of their mouth about the way his son is behaving. So you would ask yourself, do you think he's going to last in power if he ever came and maybe took over his father, maybe through a coup or just through a passage of power, transition and whatever? And it's the same thing that's happening in Kenya, that then you have been used to a militarized kind of government. Now we have changed, and now we are in we are into a civilian kind
Civilian.
of thing. Where do you then draw power and inspiration to make sure that you let the country have some kind of military aspects to it? Then you have to run to Kampala. Then the same with Tanzania. Then how do we keep ourselves, like when the Gen Zs are standing up against us, where would you run for consultation, not really?
Could the European model be something we look at? Because in Europe, the EU sort of the military is for NATO. And then when people need money, political, they go to Brussels. And then when they need money, German, and maybe they are now, Europe sort of has new centers of power that have made the countries a bit weak because European countries no longer have central banks. They can no longer
only one central bank.
Yeah. Could East Africa, because now going forward, want it or not, we need new centers of power, and we have to find a way of how we move forward.
What I find interesting
and survive in the globe.
What I find interesting with that analysis and comparison is that politically, it is quite clear that we are way on our way into militarization. And then when there is drama like in Tanzania, an unexpected drama, the answer is more militarization.
More militarism.
Right? And we've seen it in Kenya as well, where some call it police brutality, others call it militarization, but it is present. We definitely have seen it in South Sudan. But what I find interesting is that it comes with an economic model that is totally neoliberal. Like there's no very serious talk about sovereignty, economic sovereignty. When if you listen to South Africans, it's all about economic sovereignty right now. When you listen to the AES state, Somali, Burkina, Niger, sovereignty. When you listen to the Gen Z in French, like I can do, or in Francophone Africa, they tell you about sovereignty. We want sovereignty. There's two messages that come out. It's sovereignty and dignity. Dignity, definitely, it's part of East Africa, and the Gen Z is asking for dignity in many ways. But economic sovereignty, that's not what those regimes push. Ruto is very open to foreign investment. The Tanzanians also are very open to foreign investment. They even recently said that for small traders should be Tanzanian and not from anywhere else, but big capital is still welcome.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And they even have said that they need stability to have
foreign capital coming.
So we have, in one hand, a militarization of politics on the way, on the go. And in the other hand, you have a very neoliberal agenda. When in the rest of Africa, a lot of places speak of more sovereignty, like getting back African sovereignty. How do you see the articulation of those two, of an economy that is very open to foreign money, and in the same time, a very state and control society?
It's very saddening, by the way, for our nations, especially in our region. That look at Kenya. For a very long time, Kenya has been a very big nemesis to the US.
Yes.
But I think 2-3 years ago, we saw that Ruto even would manage to sit on the seat in
they went
the
too
White
far.
House.
Yes, yes.
They have-
Not NATO allied member.
Yeah, they have got that status, NATO
Yes,
ally
that's it.
member.
And that should actually be opening your eyes. We want to look at these people at their personal, at their individual levels. For instance, look at Ruto. Where has he been before he became president? What kind of economic models was he involved in? What kind of economic policies was he
Believing in or pro? Yes, yes, yes.
Stuff like that. You also ask our own president here. He has so much showed us that trajectory that he's moving from the east towards the west.
Yes.
I mean, from the west towards the east so much that now he's going to have so many Chinese in the country that he can welcome, for instance, the Europeans and stuff like that. Then you go to our neighbors, the Suluhu in Dar, who is also so much encouraging the Chinese to enter into the country and whatever. And then you also do the same benchmarking in Sudan, the way it has been Muammar al-Bashir during his reign, and now the aftermath of it, and even South Sudan. You're going to see that much of this is vested on personal interests, for instance. The founder of the biggest political party in this country, for instance, is one of the political parties from China. And we can mention those names whenever and wherever. But you look at what are the gains for the country, for instance, in the bigger spectrum of things. When it comes to the economic question of this country, it ceases to be a national thing.
Very close the window, just.
It ceases to be a national thing.
Yeah.
It becomes an individualistic thing.
Yeah.
It ceases to be something about patriotism. It becomes an individual kind of thing. That's why you see that there is that juxtaposition between militarization of the. Because when Uganda wants the military, you know where they go.
Yeah.
They go to the west.
Yeah.
But when they want to have an economic discussion, they are going to the east.
Yeah. Okay.
So the question then broadens that who are these people working for? Like I said, you are reading from a script of let me keep myself in power. Do I keep myself in power? Have the military around to quell some of those disruptors that might come from the opposition, from the Gen Zs. But then when it's the economic question, then how am I helping myself that the military is going to be here to protect me and my gains? Little wonder one of the slogans of this campaign is
protecting the gains.
Protect the gains.
So it's about individualism. In fact, for me, that's what I see, that it ceases to be a national issue. It ceases to be a national concern. If it were for a national concern, then we should be seeing that there is more money invested in, for instance, agriculture in this country. There is more money that is invested in infrastructure in this country.
Education, and
in education and health. But you're going to see the biggest chunk of money is going to the
security, military.
And we have a war in Uganda, for instance, which we need to buy maybe choppers every other day, tankers and stuff like that. We have that. I don't think we are at that level where we need to so much be having our national budget going to the security. Of course, with the paranoia that the country finds itself in, especially the leaders, you're going to see that there's going to be much emphasis put on how to govern, how to protect myself. And I know that President Museveni is my best politician that I've ever seen, because then he calculates everything, every move that he makes. When he comes up with a slogan, protecting my gains, just know he's actually protecting his gains. Ugandans don't know that. President Museveni.
So this idea of African leaders, post-independence, being in place on behalf of our former colonial masters is sort of holding water.
On behalf, it is debatable.
On behalf, it is debatable
It is debatable because since we have since seen that our colonial masters have over time played double standards.
Yes.
For all purposes and intents. They will come today in the morning and they are visiting Nakasero, for instance.
Yes.
And the afternoon they are in Kamocha or Kavuli.
For a photo op.
For a photo opportunity, but also to try to say that this is the kind of picture that we are selling out there. But at the end of the day, when all is said and done, you know that the people that hold the power are going to certainly have a bigger say in whether our colonial masters are here or not. And what they are here for is what is going to carry. So to carry the day. So it's about interests. It's about interests for those that are in power and about interests for those that are coming to speak to those in power. What interests do our colonial masters, for instance, are coming to speak to the people in power today? Everyone is for their own interests. And the people have to just forge themselves out of this. They have to, when South Africa faces the apartheid policy into the 1994, you know that Nelson Mandela comes in with a fresh breath onto the kind of leadership that Africa probably would wish to have. One would actually think that this would have been the biggest step to leapfrog into what we want and aspire for African leaders. But you know that it just lasted as good as a short span.
Short span.
You go, and now you have the Zumas, you have the Thabo Mbeks, and they have their own issues and with corruption tendencies and stuff like that, and they have to do with factionalism, and they have turned the country upside down.
Yes.
Do we find the entire continent into the same conundrum? Yes. But like I said earlier, that I know that what's happening, for instance, in the East African states is something that has happened, for instance, in the West African states, where we are seeing some semblance of change in some of the countries, Burkina Faso and stuff like that. And for me, these are baby steps into accepting who we are and helping ourselves to dig ourselves from the graves that we've buried ourselves. And who knows that at some point we are going to be out of this mess, that we are going to have leaders who are young and fresh, who have not seen, for instance, who have not experienced who do not even know the colonial story, who do not know the post-independence story. They are coming fresh minds that are just as innocent as babies who are born today. And then they are thinking about what our nation should be.
I don't know if they're innocent, because I mean, last week we were speaking of Andy Radzowel, like the president of Madagascar. Young, DJ, exactly like you described, right? Well, it turned out that now that he left power, we knew that he obtained French nationality in the middle of his mandate to protect French interests, and that he used to give money to Nicolas Sarkozy, which is in jail because he already took the money of Gaddafi. So, yes, I get your point, but also we still need to have people like you, journalists, independent journalists, to also fact check what are those things. It's not because you are young that you know what to do. Yeah. It's sometimes you are young and they like you because they think they can manipulate you, and other people can manipulate you. True. And so we need a balance. I'm not so unhappy with a Museveni that can't be played, honestly. I don't know who can play, which foreign leaders can play Museveni here. Maybe that's
he's a master of geopolitics.
One extreme, but also we want a leadership that also understands the situation. That is not that understand the situation, not just idealistic about the situation or what we want to do. Well, we know what you want to do, but that's also lead me to like the questions that I wanted to ask you. Like, you've been speaking with opposition leader, you've been engaging with them in a personal level, outside of the mics, right? Obviously, as a journalist, not as an individual. But do we have an opposition that understand? And does East Africa has an opposition that understand all those dynamics we speak about, or are they purely propaganda?
Before you answer that, I want to add on to something. When Mnangagwa was about to become president, there were signs. And then Grace started fighting him. One of the signs was he went to China and he got this elaborate red carpet, and then it was like sort of a blessing.
After he turned back.
We have seen Ruto play America and NATO ally. He has been able to convert their SGR debt into the Chinese currency. And America is not happy. Why is he going back to Beijing? What? Congress wasn't happy about it. Recently, I have seen Mohozi do, I think, 2 months in Beijing.
Is it?
2
months in the middle of a war in Sudan, Congo, and Somalia.
So, again, does the opposition understand these dynamics? Where to play, on which issues to play, if they want to have a taste of power? In the south, we had Hakainde Hichilema. He took over. When he was campaigning, he was against Chinese loans, and the moment Zambia. He took over, he was the Chinese man.
He was the Chinese man in the place, yes. Because exactly, that's the things you have to understand. Yeah. If you are a Kenyan politician right now and you say, I'm against China, you're not entering the game.
Yeah. So
there's no way. China debt is too big.
Again, going back to Thomas's question, in the region, does the opposition understand these dynamics? Do they understand why Museveni is putting one leg into BRICS and he's not entering? He's being a partner state or something when they are members?
One of the things I can say, and I have read in the political reverberations of this country or even the region, is that, Uganda, where we are right now, we we do not have very many choices to make in terms of allies, in terms of interests and stuff. The power masters of the world now do dictate how most of our states work and how they move. And it's going to be a question of, if you become a leader, then which angle do you incline yourself to? I can tell you, for instance, in Uganda, the biggest opposition leader, if he came in parliament, if he came to State House, I know which side he would be inclined to. And it has been quite evident.
Of course, it has been.
Tell us.
They are saying.
Tell us.
He was in Kiev some time back.
We don't want you to get arrested.
We don't want to enter some of those things.
So far. We're really happy about that.
But you can see that everyone's going to place their interests in accordance to what they feel. Whether they do understand some of these dynamics, I would say yes, they do understand. And because Uganda doesn't stand in isolation, or the East African states do not stand in isolation. If anyone who vies to become a leader in a country, they certainly are alive to some of these power dynamics that are at play worldwide, from the east to the south. When we saw President Museveni too much on his knees in the West, we never thought that at some point he would be in the east, like he is
because
right now.
he was from the left.
And for me, if you asked me, can the West make President Museveni kneel down?
No, of course not.
At the moment they can't.
Can the East do? Yes.
The East can do it now, eh?
Yes.
They could, okay.
They would.
Interesting.
Because look at the economy right now and where it's moving.
Yeah, it's moving toward. But it's a natural place of Uganda to look east and not to look west. Like
Yeah.
you have Congo in the middle of you and the Atlantic. Like you do not want to pass by Congo. Like ask Katanga. They try to put their stuff in Angola, in the Lupito corridor.
Lupito corridor,
It's very
everything.
hard. Until today, it is very hard.
And for someone to gain the I would have used the other words, but for someone to gain the strength, the muscle,
Yes.
to turn from the west to the east,
Yes.
it's not going to be anything easy.
Yeah.
You have to be very crucial in your decision makings, but also in terms of interests. Which interests are you vying for right now? Because if we were saying that probably President Museveni is now looking at industrial revolution in the country, in Uganda, and then probably that would be one of the reasons as to why he's taking the eastern route, because of the history that eastern has in terms of
Industrialization. And
that's not what he's looking at. You would be that now, since he's more militaristic, then you want to remain so much into the West, because that's where you have been and have had your strength over
Best
the years.
weapons.
You get, but you just look at now. If, for instance, President Museveni left power today, what are the chances that his generation and the people around him are going to be safe? Where are they going to be safe? Are they going to be safe in the West, where they have been asking him and calling him out on human rights violation? Or is it going to be in the East, where it has been quite quiet about like some of these matters? Then you have to look at all the interests at play. And those are the same interests that are spanning across in Sudan, in Tanzania, in Nairobi. And for me, that's what I think.
That's what you see. Very interesting. Thank
very
you.
interesting.
Thank you for that. I know, Benjamin, you have some questions about the press.
Yeah,
and all
press.
of this.
Press. My
And your
question.
role as a journalist.
Yeah. You are a journalist, high level, nation media. When we were growing up, nation media had a special place in our hearts. And when NTV joined the game, everything changed. How does press freedom look in Uganda, especially in the last, let's say, 10 years? And I'm asking this question at a time when Nation Media Group has been banned from covering the parliament, from covering President Museveni's events. And this is not new. It has happened to other media groups in the past. I remember when NTV was starting out, they were first blocked. So where does that put Nation Media? Where does it put press freedom, journalism, this trade?
So just in the East African perspective.
In the East African perspective.
Compare with Kenyan journalists, Tanzanian journalists,
Yeah,
your
Rwanda.
colleague that you know,
I I was going to tell you that let's not discuss this in terms of Uganda.
Yes.
Because I was in Nairobi at the early last month, and I was speaking to quite many journalists who cannot speak their minds in Nairobi.
In Nairobi, so
because of the infringement on press freedoms that have happened over time. NTV of Kenya,
yes,
I think was blocked more than 4 times in 1 year.
Okay.
In 20.
Plus the financial
yes,
most probably, yeah.
You get? It was blocked, and I could see my bosses prancing around to try to find those people who are in power to unblock them. The same with Citizen TV and Kiss FM several times blocked and stuff like that, and other media houses within Nairobi. Just last week, one friend of mine who is an astute journalist in TZ could not speak to me because her phones were being hacked, because internet was shut down, because the media houses had been blocked from doing everything. We've had stories of killings of journalists in Dar es Salaam, and they're not very. They are not new stories. They are all over from the regime of John Pombe Magufuli.
Fully. Actually, when Samia Suluhu came in, she did unban some media houses, which she's banning again.
She's banning again. The same trend is being seen today.
She unbanned people at the microphone. Damn, that's true. I forgot about that. And now she's banning them again.
Now it's not a new story in Uganda as well. Nation media cannot access the president because of one of the stories that we did when he was at a ranch when he was visiting one of his PDM model. Is it called 4-acre model?
There are very many stories on that.
Yes, we spoke about that with Benjamin before it came out.
In Goma, and our journalist just said he observed the story. And these success stories that were coming out, and they seemed to be very plastic. But one person just stands up and says, President Museveni, your 4-acre model is not working. This is certainly not working. And for us, we don't. In fact, to those people who have said that they have success stories, they don't have success stories. In fact, to prove prove the woman wrong, some of the people who are saying, President Museveni, your model has worked. We earn now 500 million in a year. At the end of the day, we went kneeling before President Museveni to give them just transport to go back to their homes. And the stories do not even just add up. So you come and tell such a story, and President Museveni gets so much anger and says, you'll never report about me again. Now,
so you think it's him, or is the people that lie to him that the system works? Like the close to him?
You know, we were talking with Thomas about a farm that was made up. He visited it, and then when he left, it was dismantled, and and people got allowances, and how can't he know?
It's about lack of intelligence that this man has gotten himself into.
Okay,
that he was bragging about our intelligence the other day.
That he no longer has no one that he trusts.
Yeah.
In fact, probably he has people he trusts. That he no longer has anyone he should trust.
Okay.
You get that everyone comes out and all they are doing is to look for how do I gain from this situation?
Yeah.
How am I putting my pockets in a happy mode at this point? So when he goes out the 4-acre model, launches it across the country, and then he goes to check on it, and people are being paraded in dramatic ways to try to tell success stories that have never existed. Then this particular one comes out. President Museveni should have been firing some few of these people, but he's just President Museveni. And that's one thing that I always tell people.
Animal farm.
Just President Museveni.
Yeah, you can't farm for hectares.
He is going to allow a bad story to thrive for a day or two, as long as he knows that at some point I am going to play my cards smart and get out with what I want. And for me, sometimes I actually think that President Museveni just becomes so pedantic and then also becomes so emotional. He's overly emotive because of probably his age. We have a Uganda saying that people who grow
older
become overly emotive. What they call ntondo.
yes.
That emotional, that something small triggers you easily,
Okay.
Something small triggers you, and probably that's what he's suffering from the NMG.
It's too emotional.
Emotional and uncontrolled anger, but also because of the people that are around him. Keep feeding him with information probably that he shouldn't be getting. In Parliament, for instance, it's a story about like the speaker has sued all her opponents.
Yeah.
And then she has bought out all her opponents because she's fighting to be
unopposed.
Yeah.
And then we tell that story the way it is, and then you come and get so annoyed and kick us out. And of course, these are the biggest two arms of government. In fact, biggest to the extent that now judiciary is the only one that is left.
They're about.
But how much power does the judiciary have in this country? You have the executive, which has
capacity.
a lot of power. Probably absolute power.
Yeah.
And then you have parliament that has a semblance of power as an arm of government. And if these two have blacked out the most independent media house in the country, it's so telling about the governance system, the governance story of the country, and the democracy that we are always bleating about in the country. It's so telling about the kind of leadership we have now that will not stand to be to stand accountability questions, that will not stand any critique, any story that criticizes their position. So, like I said, we seem to be reading from the same script across the region.
Across the region.
And you're going to see those in all and pasted and copied from all different East African.
And I can tell our viewers, we didn't pay him to say that. It's not because we call the East African perspective. It is because we believe in that very much
we
so.
do.
It is the same script.
Yeah.
And we have to learn from each other if we want to progress together. And that's why this show is for. Is also to try to allow like all those conversations to happen.
What happens to investigative journalists like you in East Africa? We have seen people like WikiLeaks. I think even the Watergate scandal were journalists that uncovered it. Intelligence is feeding the president their own stories.
Is it
What?
intelligence after all?
Yeah, intelligence has to be
When you call
intelligent.
yourself intelligent and you name it, you kind of know. You kind of know.
What is the weight investigative journalists, citizen journalists, have to make sure these stories don't get lost amidst the blackouts? You know, when the blackout Nation Media Group is facing at some point will be financial, you won't get government adverts. How do you navigate these waters? How do you make sure stories are told the way they are supposed to be told amid this situation and across the region? It is hard, it is what is happening in Burundi. You can't know what is happening.
You can't get
in
a story out of Burundi right now.
You can't. There is nothing you can know about
Journalists don't
Burundi.
even have petrol to go in and do the interviews. Sad.
We are in a very sorry state. We are in a very sorry state as journalists. We are struggling so much. And these blackouts do not come just in the physical form that we see them. These blackouts come in so many ways, including the financial that you're talking about. And yet, there's not so many people who are willing to fund journalism the way it used to be. That there are so many grants and donations that are coming through towards journalism. Of course, there are so many institutions that are trying out, but to fund a media house to run its operations throughout the year, it needs certainly to have a very good resource base in terms of finances. And if you're shut out by government in terms of advertisement, in fact, most of our media houses here in Uganda, government contributes more than 75%
to their incomes,
revenue.
revenue.
You get. But now, if you shut that out, then you have only to play with the 25%, which 25% you're not sure whether it's going to finance this and that. I can tell you, Daily Monitor has not deployed people to go and cover the elections the way we used to. No one from the headquarters has gone out. The only last time I went out to go and investigate on a matter, to go and do a special report, I used my own money.
Yeah, because
and I don't have the right to
something of your might know is it's very expensive to do those investigations because you have to pay a journalist for 3 months, 6 months, sometimes even longer. No publication, nothing, just research.
And I don't have a right to ask for that money from the Daily Monitor because there is no money. And been explained to that man, we should sit and we use some of the bureaus within those areas, and it has crippled the election story that should have been told in a most accurate and balanced way, and probably even more contextualized. But that is telling you that you stifle media expressions and media freedoms at your own peril. It will not come. In a very short time, it's going to cripple the media in so many ways, especially finances and stuff. Like in a short time. But in the longer run, it's going to cripple governance of the entire country. That somewhere where people would have been going for, just going for maybe research, for backup, to just see and view the stories that happened before, you can never get them there because you crippled them financially and they weren't able to. When President Museveni talks about the Monitor, calling it a bad paper,
Always.
he in one way or the other is tickling so many people to think about Daily Monitor and how they are doing.
Yeah, definitely.
You get?
Yes, yeah.
But the people around him will think that the abuses are actually to the detriment until he withdraws his support to the media and it comes backfiring to him. That's when he will know that I should have kept the media here. Because if you have accepted democracy has to be checked.
Yeah,
Democracy
definitely.
has
Balances.
Checks and balances have to be in a democracy. And who does that? It's the fourth estate. Now, if you have said that I don't want the fourth estate, but still continue to tell the democracy rhetoric, then you are just shooting yourself in the foot. And I know that one day he will sit somewhere and say, I should have never made this kind of mistake. But for now, Daily Monitor, NTV, whatever, we are in a quagmire, we are in a sorry state, but we know that probably we could move away from this in the nearby future.
Okay, very interesting. Thanks. Benjamin, you still have questions about the state of journalism?
No, yeah. I would ask before the ban and the blackout about how much journalism has transitioned, why it looks different. When we were growing up, journalism didn't look the way it looks right now. Our role models were journalists.
Okay.
Today, it would be different if you asked somebody younger.
The youth are watching us. We are their role model. What are you talking about? They all want to become
Of course, today we look at them and we're like, that was my role model,
Now.
Yeah, but those were our role models. They were on the TV, they were educating, they were informing. Today, it's a different picture.
Is it because we don't have those big names? That
And then also, there is also now the mix of AI and there was something moving around Twitter where something was printed in the newspapers and there was an AI citation. I don't know what happened to the editor. He didn't see it and it was printed. So what has happened? Where is journalism going?
I would like the world to appreciate the fact that we are in changing times.
Definitely.
Changing times that must be appreciated. Changing times that must be adhered to. The best journalist in this country is going to be one who is going to move as fast and faster, like or at the same pace with the developments that are coming with AI, with ChatGPT, with all the trends online and stuff like that. That's going to be the best journalist. In the 4 days, for instance, 10 to 20 years ago, we would have never sat in this studio to record this, because then where would we put it? We would have market on
we didn't even have a
on
platform for that.
Spotify and whatever. Right now, people are consuming news from all different parts of their lives and society. A person can consume everything just on their phone.
Yeah.
And the best journalist is the one who is going to make sure that they squeeze as much news onto the phone as possible, as much information onto online as possible. I can tell you, for instance, in the country here, anywhere around 2014, 2015, around there, the Daily Monitor was selling anywhere about 17,000 copies a day. The New Vision, that was doing much better than Daily Monitor, was selling 25,000 copies a day. Book a Day, that has been selling the biggest number of copies, was selling about 35,000 copies a day. Red Paper, of course, could sell anywhere around 12,000 and whatever. But these numbers have since drastically dropped. Right now, Daily Monitor struggles to raise 10,000 copies, to sell 10,000 copies.
Yeah, this video is going to make 10,000 views on our TikTok.
In just a click away, in just 10 seconds.
Very true, yeah.
New Vision struggles to sell 12,000 copies, which was selling 25,000. In just a spread of 10 years, it's dropped into their deep 900s and whatever. Wow. You get? Red Paper is no longer in circulation.
Yeah.
For instance, The Observer became a weekly paper. It became a weekly paper. And what does that show you about the changing times of journalism and media? The consumption has certainly changed. Now, people are receiving news on TikTok. I don't know how many people in this room have TikTok accounts, with my exception.
You should follow us on
More
TikTok.
than one.
I think the majority of the people that is going to listen to this interview will first saw it by shorts. They will listen to shorts of you, and then they will go to YouTube. They will start with TikTok. So don't say too bad things about our TikTok followers.
Yes. So how many people are consuming news, for instance, on TikTok right now? How many are consuming their news from WhatsApp statuses and stuff like that? And how many people are taking information to YouTube and consuming from YouTube and Facebook Reels and YouTube Reels and stuff like that? And trust you me, you put up a video and more than 20,000 people have seen the video in just a span of 30 minutes or less. And I don't know how many copies you would sell in 30 minutes. You probably would sell none. You get. And also it tells about the attention span of the generation right now,
which is dangerous.
People have a very small attention span of about only 20 seconds that can be consumed on a WhatsApp status or a reel or 2 minutes and stuff like that. No one sits to watch a podcast from start to the end unless you are this ardent person who wants to dig out on as much information as possible. And those are the changing times. So it's not killing media; it's advancing media.
It is definitely layers that we're adding. It is layers.
Yeah, it's layers, and it would take someone. It would take someone being intentional on accepting and moving forward with the media trends that are changing.
Okay. Those in journalism school should know what is happening. Okay.
I think this is the end of this podcast that you have been listening. Is there any topic or argument that we haven't spoke about that you want to share with our viewers? Maybe usually we like to finish with maybe like one book to read to understand East Africa. Do you have one book to advise us, or maybe a podcast, or something for our audience to go further on this conversation?
Oh, you didn't prepare me for this.
Yes. Benjamin has a book for us.
Definitely Slow Poison.
It's Slow Poison by Mom Danny.
Mom Danny.
Yeah, but I think I would also advise someone to read Slow Poison.
Yeah.
It's a very good book. That
Very good book.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
We learned a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you very much for this
Thanks for
conversation.
Yeah.
Derrick Wandera, you are more than welcome to come back here when you have info, when you have things to tell us. Our audience, I think, will like this show. Thank you for being here. Where do we follow you? So you said you have TikTok, I understand?
I'm not on TikTok.
Do we follow you on X?
I'm on X
Tell us.
at Derrick Wandera too.
Derrick Wandera too.
I am on Facebook at
and
Derrick
LinkedIn.
Wandera. I'm on LinkedIn at
Yes.
Derrick Wandera.
Derrick Wandera seems to be the way. Seems to be the way.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. If you like this content, please subscribe to the channel or to wherever you're listening to it. If you're watching on TikTok or on Shorts, please go to the main content and maybe you will like it even more.
Definitely.
This is at least the 20th, around the 20th episode.
Not yet. We are not yet there.
We're continuing to push, and we're going to see each other very soon. Thank you for watching us. Thank you for following.
Thank you.
A good day, all. Thank you, guys.